Welcome to Shopify Masters, the podcast powered by Shopify.
And welcome to the Bushbalm Miniseries.
I'm Shannan, one of the hosts of Shopify Masters.
And I'm David Gaylord, the co-founder of Bushbalm and Shopify's merchant in residence.
We are so excited to bring you insights from Bushbalm's story in this 6-part mini-series. We'll dive deeper into each area of the business.
Yeah, we'll be talking about product development, marketing, digital strategies, and so much more. So follow along, comment and ask questions, what you'd like to see. We're happy to do it.
And David, we have a very special start for the first episode. Tell us, what do you have in store?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking with my former boss and the chief operating officer of Shopify, Toby, Shannan. We dive into kind of the nitty gritty behind the business, some lessons learned, some kind of bad business practices, as well as some successes.
Amazing. Well, here it is, our first episode of the Bushbalm miniseries featuring David and Toby.
I'm Toby Shannan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Shopify, and I'm here with David Gaylord. How you doing, David?
Hey, very good. Happy to be here.
And so maybe it would be helpful for you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career at Shopify, and a little bit about what a Bushbalm is.
What a Bushbalm is. Yeah, so my journey at Shopify starts probably 9 years ago now.
Wow.
So not as an employee, but 2 years before I became an employee, my family has a hardwood flooring store and they became a Shopify merchant.
Right.
That was when it was the slime green at the time, the admin. I remember comparing all of Magento. I learned all of them. And then after I did that, I joined the company in the customer service role at the time. So that would have been over 6 years ago now.
On my team at the time.
On your team, yeah. And that was, I think the company was 700 Shopify strong at that point.
Yeah.
And then from there, so I joined Shopify and joined Toby's team. And slowly within the company grew into roles and we started to work closer together.
Yep.
And it was 4 years ago I started What is a Bushbalm?
Right.
So I started the company with a partner who was also at Shopify.
Yeah.
And should I tell what a Bushbalm is?
Maybe before that even. Save that fun bit for later. It should be noted too that Shopify is super cool on people doing side hustles using our technology especially, right?
Yeah.
And so did you know you wanted to start a business or were you just trying to get better at doing your job?
So actually, the reason I joined Shopify, there was other places I could have applied and tried to get a job, but I wanted to join Shopify because e-commerce I thought was really interesting and up and coming at the time. Okay. So joining Shopify was amazing because I learned everything about e-commerce marketing. Like it was really interesting. And then the company, the reason we started Bushbalm, which is the company we'll talk about today, is externally Shopify had a build a business competition. Right. And with Richard Branson or the Big Island, they would be the trip. Internally, we did a build a business competition for employees. Right. So Bushbalm started as that build a business.
So $250, well, $500, I guess. Yeah. In capital, that's how you started.
Yeah. And then we also put a little bit more in. So total though, I looked at this the other day. It was like $952 with the domain charge or whatever. Okay. Yeah. And that was what started it right away.
Okay. So what is Bushbalm?
Yeah. So Bushbalm originally started as a kind of cosmetic product for freshening up down there. So it was all about scent because my partner and his wife on their honeymoon used the product, his beard oil, and he thought maybe we should build a product you can use everywhere that smells nice. And it's transitioned not to that.
Why? What does it transition to?
So now we're more of a problem-solving skincare brand. Okay. So we focus, we've just been working on this a lot lately, is we focus on solving skin concerns that we believe the beauty industry is often ignored. So think about ingrown hairs, razor burn, chafing, those kind of solutions.
Sunburns on the top of the head.
Potentially, yeah.
Good to know.
So solving these things that people don't see as big challenges, but they're really common. So that's what Bushbalm's morphed to. Cool. Scent is less of a focus now.
Can you talk a little bit about the scale of the business now?
Yeah. So this year we're on pace. We'll probably do close to 10 to 12 million in Canadian revenue.
Okay. So from $900 in investment, you've gone to $10 million in revenue.
Yeah.
In how much? 4 years? Is that what you said?
Roughly 4 years. Yeah. So it's, I think 4.5 now, but
wow.
Yeah. And it's really been like a exponential curve every year, essentially.
And do you sell all that through Shopify? Is there anything off Shopify?
99% of it would be on Shopify. We use like one platform for wholesale in some ways, but even our wholesale business is mostly on Shopify. Cool. And we've done that all mostly to date, direct to consumer, and none of it on mass retail, none of it like on Amazon, anywhere else. It's been all Shopify.
So for a big chunk of that time, you were working directly with me, right?
Yeah, the first 4 years of that.
And so we worked a lot. Mm-hmm. Like we worked 8 hours, 9, 10, 12 hours a day. Like, how did you have time to do all this?
Yeah. So working with you is hectic. It's a lot of work.
I need a lot of help is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess in my role with Toby, I was operations lead for a year there. And what that meant was I worked on a lot of like decks, and we were presenting to different parts of the company, doing all kinds of kind of internal public facing stuff. Yeah. But my Bushbalm routine, which I got into, which is not very healthy, I would say, is every morning I woke up like 6:30 and I worked Bushbalm usually 7 to 8. Right. I worked hard on stuff. And I remember I'd go to meetings and I'd be like, have to set it aside for later. And then I did tons of Bushbalm at night. Yeah. And then my biggest Bushbalm day was Sundays for 3 or 4 hours is when I got most of my good work done.
So would you say an hour in the morning, an hour at night?
Probably at least.
And 3 hours on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the Bushbalm time.
You're still looking at 13 hours a week?
Yeah.
15 hours a week? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're able to build like a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
And what about your partner?
Tim, he also worked at Shopify, and so he left quite a bit earlier, and that helped in many ways. Right. So I focus on the marketing side and sales, and he runs the back of house. Right. So he fully left the company to do supply chain.
How long ago was that?
So it would have been about a year ago, maybe now. Yeah. So he went on pat leave, and then he ended up extending that.
He probably had a more competent boss too. He could have. He didn't have to work 12 hours a day.
Yeah. So it was helpful. Tim obviously doing that. Where actually one part of running a side hustle and a full-time job is it made us have trade-offs of what to do. So a good example was in the first year, someone said you should do wholesale, and we said, you know what, no, because it's too much work. You got to call people, you got to talk to people. So we tried to do only things we could automate in many ways. Yeah. D2C, you can do that.
Sort of an essentialist approach.
Yeah.
Just by hook and crook, right? You got forced into that. That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're still at Shopify. Mm-hmm. You've got this great business. So all the way along, we thought it was valuable. I thought it was valuable. And maybe just unpack why you think I thought it was valuable.
Yeah. So for probably the last 3 years anyway, Bushbalm has been growing and scaling, and like you in particular, and probably a good 10 teams at Shopify would come to me with quick questions. Right. Hey, as a merchant, what do you think of this? Yeah. As a merchant, would you ever use something that does that? Right. So those teams slowly became closer with me, and then so now my role is merchant in residence at the company. Yeah. So I work a smaller amount of time, and when I was quitting Shopify per se, I told you, I said, I can't do this side of me that's, doing Shopify business, which is interesting, and then the marketing D2C side. Yeah. So you said, well, why don't you just do the marketing D2C, run a business side, but help Shopify along the way. Yeah. So that's what I do now.
Well, I think what was always apparent to me is, and I don't know if it was Bezos or someone talks about having like an empty chair around the boardroom for the customer. One of the things that you fulfilled, and I think you continue to fulfill as merchant in residence, is that voice of the merchant that's always prevalent in every conversation. Right. So I think it's a really healthy thing to have. Tech talks about dog fooding their company all the time, my daughter used Shopify a bit, and that was sort of helpful, but not really. So I'm pretty out of touch with the product in ways that you are completely in touch with. And so just grounding that conversation, I think, is really useful for the org.
What I add to that is I can be very critical and very honest, and everyone still likes me for it.
Yeah, that might be a bit of you, but it's part of the role, right? You're like, hey, I'm telling you the truth here. Shopify needs to pull up its socks when it comes to X.
Yeah, right? And it's also, I think what is kind of hidden and not part of the role is me encouraging other people to experiment with the platform from trying it and using it. Because like now, the more years I use Shopify, now the more in tune I am with it. Right. Even though I might be doing different things, I understand it way better than I ever did.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're listening to this and you're not in Shopify, let's assume, what can those people learn from your role in Shopify and learning how to scale a company from like 700, when you said, to we're currently over 11,000 people. So what can you learn?
Yeah. So a lot of people ask me, like, what did working at Shopify help you in your job and running your business? And if you are someone who's trying a side hustle for the first time, you're moving into something, working at a company like Shopify was so valuable and on the things that I didn't expect. So like how to run a business operationally. I wouldn't expect that to be helpful. It's so helpful from Shopify. Say leadership, all the leadership training you get at these big companies is phenomenal usually. And then HR, how to hire people, how to train people. Those things are very valuable for Bushbalm today. And then probably the most valuable thing is just how to organize a company. Because like my family business is a much smaller company, so I never understood, say, the departments or the needs or why. And then I worked at Shopify and I saw like the work the finance team does. I get it now. We might not have a person who's a finance employee, but I know and appreciate like the work they do. And then same with talent. We don't have an HR person per se, but I know like I have to be the HR person and I have to have the documents, the legal team, like you need to have these. Whereas if I just went into Bushbalm, I wouldn't understand all of those pieces, I'd say.
So let me play it back to you, because I feel like you're saying, if you're in another company right now, pay attention, first off, to how things are structured, because that may be a bit of your future, and pay attention to how things are done, because those things may be part of your future.
And exactly.
And if you're curious, like talk to somebody in finance about why you would do that, or talk to somebody in HR. Is that kind of where you're going?
Yeah, exactly. And the more you see business, and some people go to a job and they think, oh, I don't like this job. It's not fun. You go every time you learn something. Any company, you're going to learn either what not to do or what to do, or you're going to learn like what a leader does and how you should act. And for me, Shopify was a great place to do that, but I'm sure many companies will give you a similar experience.
Well, especially if you pay attention, to your point. And so the good news is you never had to hide your ambition of doing this. Like we really encouraged it.
Exactly.
It's the best attrition for us. It's someone who leaves our employee to start a $10 to $20 million company is probably as good as it gets. What can we learn from you?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. I guess the one thing that I find Shopify does do well, and listening to the merchant, is understanding like the use cases people have, because there's so many, but also understanding the things that I don't understand I need yet. Because say 2 years ago, I didn't understand that how important data would become for me. And now data is becoming much more important, and I'm starting to dig into like it more. And the piece that Shopify has to somehow figure out, and I think is trying, is what are like the next things? Like I know headless was announced and the new sections everywhere. So it's like getting ahead of the things I don't know I need yet. So for me, I'm trying to, how do I give those to the company? It's really hard. And then the other piece on what to learn is, I think Shopify really has to, Shopify and many of the employees are very high level of what's going on. And I think it's really hard to dig down into like the very detailed bits of what running a business is. And a good example would be Facebook ads. Like right now, I can tell you like what's going on and like the nitty gritty details, the struggle that many businesses are having. And I think Shopify from entrepreneurs needs to pull down a level and see like the nitty gritty so then they can pull it back to like what they need to build.
Right.
Whereas that's maybe a piece that it's just really hard to pull that info always up.
Sure.
So you got to talk to a lot of merchants essentially.
If you had the proverbial magic wand, what's the thing about Shopify you would change to make it better for your business?
There are a few things that I think a lot of people in my seat would say. One is landing pages. And what happened 3 years ago at Bushbalm is landing pages and the apps and the software elsewhere wasn't very good. Right. I found anyway.
And sorry, just so I play it back to understand, a landing page that may start a specific campaign if you're like from a geo or you're...
So if you think of how we use them is you've got, or say Facebook ads, you've got our Google ads. Every one of these ads is going to a landing page somewhere.
Got it.
And that landing page is much more aggressive and it'll sell someone much better than our homepage or our collections page. Yeah. So those right now are arguably one of the most important pieces of our business because they make our engine run and our marketing work.
You A/B test each one relentlessly, I assume?
We've just learned how to do that, but yes. Now we're really like building A/B tests for almost every landing page, all the words on them. So that right now is a huge thing that I wish I could do natively in Shopify.
Right.
And I think with sections everywhere, it'll change that. And I would pay for that. Like I currently pay for it elsewhere. So I would pay much more for that in Shopify.
Yeah, interesting.
So landing page is a big one. And then data is so challenging.
Right.
And I'm working with like Google Analytics and Google Optimize now is where you can A/B test. But when I first started, data was pretty irrelevant.
Right.
And now data is something that I'm struggling with a lot.
And does that just have to do with your scale now? You've got so much stuff going on, you need the data, whereas before it was more of your intuition? Or
Yeah, and early on, like the only data that really was mattered was like, can I get sales? Can I sell more? Whereas now we put a lot of money into a new product launch. So like a new product might cost us $300K to launch.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly, I want to know how many people are repeat buying and then how many people are repeat buying in other products and all of those metrics, just kind of how much money do we get back at a certain point?
Yeah.
Because it's a bit bigger now.
So just the physics of your business, is it predicated on repeat buy or is it upsell, cross-sell? Like what, or is it first buy? Like maybe walk me through your funnel of like, what's the most crucial thing?
Yeah. So I think as a business, one of the most important metrics is repeat. Yeah. Because it's a good assignment of, are you a good product?
Yeah.
So if you don't have a good repeat rate, you might not have a good business that'll last. So that's a really important metric. So for us, we do spend a lot on advertising. And then we know we get them in the door and we have a really good repeat. Yeah. So we know we get the repeat rates. And then the questions we don't know is, will they buy other products that we're introducing? Right. Which is like a new challenge.
Are you public with your customer acquisition costs?
Not really, but like depending on the channel, it ranges. Yeah. So like as far as a business model, we'll probably spend between, depending on the channel, $16 and $30 on customer acquisition. Yeah. And our model is upsell and make sure people have what we call routines. Yeah. So generally for a skin concern, we don't have a single product. Mm-hmm. We do have single products, but our goal is for healthy skin, you want to have a routine, right? So for the customer, it's good because they'll solve their solution that they need. But also for us, it's good because then they're on a routine and it's more subscription based.
And from, that's just where I was going to go actually. Do we help you fit those routines? Like, do we have a subscription solution that maps to most customers' routines?
Yeah. Well, there's many subscription players we can use now, and Shopify is enabling it, which is great. And we don't have subscriptions built in yet, but we're planning on launching that like later this year. I don't know this is part where Shopify could help actually. Is I'm making these decisions of like, I need to launch subscriptions, but I'm trying to find at some point, someone will tell me, I don't know where it is or in Shopify, hey, you have a repeat rate of X% and you have this metric and this metric. It looks like you're a perfect business for subscriptions and you should launch here.
And right now we don't offer that level of data diagnosis.
Yeah. And I'm kind of stuck looking around, talking to people. Which is the hardest part.
Off the top of your head, do you know roughly what the repeat subscription rate is? It like once a month people repurchase, once a quarter, once a year?
I'm not sure. Right. Even a good question for us is how long does the bottle last?
Right.
It's a hard question to answer, and we'll dive into 100 accounts and look, and make our assumption, but that's a metric that doesn't seem to exist.
And like for entrepreneurs out there, my suspicion is like that is the question. You don't have to ask it right now because of your CAC at $20, let's say. So you're like, because maybe even your first sale covers that. Would that be accurate? Right.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of gravy after that. But if your CAC was $150 and your product cost was like, say, $35, then that becomes a super germane question.
Yeah.
Right?
And the world of, like, I've learned a lot now about venture capital and how much money you get. And a lot of companies were raising huge amounts of money. And their key assumption was, we know the LTV will be more because this metric. Right. Whereas a lot of them turned out not to be the case.
And do you have a LTV lifetime value?
Yeah, that's one we do have.
Yeah.
So it's actually, interestingly enough, on Shopify.
Yeah.
1 year, I think it was last year, we launched bundles. Yeah. So we just made bigger kits with more products in them, and we doubled our LTV by doing that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I never thought like kitting, bundles, bigger cart value, it made a huge difference.
Did the product help in any way to do that, or was that just your own decision?
Just a decision to try it. And also looking at others, what people have done.
And does your LTV go up every year? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, we've seen LTV as we've launched more products gradually go up. Right. And we've also launched for the first time it was kind of a risk at the time, a trimmer, which has a much higher cart value. So it was the cost of our old LTV.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine. Because it's an actual device.
Yeah.
Instead of a bottle full of
oil.
Sauce.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And so are you making that thing work?
Yeah, no, it's going really well. It was a risk because we thought, do we know, and Facebook ads, people talk about it, is can you sell something that's higher value?
Yep.
Because it's a pretty quick purchase. You're not sure. So no, it's worked out really well. Cool. I was skeptical for a while, but it's turned out.
Yeah. Great. For the folks listening, David, what are a few critical things that they should consider?
Yeah. So for me, the one thing that I grew into slowly was mentorship in many ways.
Okay.
So working with yourself. Yeah. So I don't know if you should chat a little bit about your entrepreneurship before Shopify.
Right. So I've been at Shopify for about 12 years, I guess, 11 full time. Before that, I was a serial entrepreneur. Most of the companies failed. That's the nature of entrepreneurship. One of them that worked that people might know was a little kit that you spit in, you get DNA from. I helped a bunch of folks in Ottawa start that up, 2003. But if you've taken a 23andMe test, you've spit in one of those kits. So that was successful. But I spent a long time starting things that didn't work. And in fact, I found you learn equal from the things that don't work as the ones that do.
Yeah. And so on the mentorship side, I don't know if people listening will know this, but you were a mentor for me for a long time as we worked together at Shopify, and the company encourages you to kind of start your own business, do your own thing. Yeah. And that for me as a person going through most of it for the first time, just having someone and a few other people to talk to helped a lot and alleviate the stress, I would say.
Yeah, I had a similar relationship with a bunch of different people who invested in me early on, who helped me out immeasurably. I ended up hiring one of those people who ended up being both of our mentors, Roy, right?
Yeah.
So it's getting a good mentor, somebody to spitball ideas, somebody to sort of kick your ass, actually, if you're doing the wrong thing, and someone just to talk to who's done it before is incredibly useful. I can't recommend that enough.
Yeah. And we're right now, I have another mentor who I meet with every week. We do breakfast now. Yep. And we talked about hiring. Yep. And I don't know if it's your team you're on, you get surrounded by people who, if everyone agrees, you kind of all go the same direction. Right. And then at breakfast, the question is, someone who doesn't agree, you hear a different opinion, and that's helped kind of shape how we do things.
So, and sometimes not as close to the business. That's helpful too, right?
Yeah. I have two consultants we work with now who are much more away of the business. And we meet quarterly, and it's just advice from the industry that we never thought of. Right. I don't think we'd be able to have scaled without some of the mentorship side.
Yep.
So the one thing, it's so interesting. It was actually Roy connected us with Sheldon is his name. He's a CFO for hire. Yeah. And he gave this one piece of advice. I talked quickly for not even 10 minutes about our supply chain issues. Last year with COVID, huge supply chain issues. And he asked simple questions. He said, what's your most expensive raw good? And we said, it's this one. And then he said, okay, what takes the longest to get? And he said, okay. And then he said, what's the cheapest raw good? Right. And I said, it's this one. And he said, okay, it sounds like your cheapest raw good is also the longest to get.
Right.
So we said you should buy a lot of it up front and warehouse it, and then it'll make your supply chain a lot faster.
Yeah.
And that 10-minute phone call, it's really saved our business this year. Because we went from 1.8 million to 10 million. And without that piece of advice, we would have been sold out half the year.
Right. Yeah. So it doesn't take a lot, right? You know, if you're a careful listener and you've got somebody who understands your business, people who have the experience are super invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully Sheldon charged you like 11 points on the dollar.
Yeah. It really was one of the best, quickest pieces of advice we've ever received.
Yeah. That's awesome. What did you learn just by watching Shopify? Again, 700 to 11,000. Like, we scaled systems and technology and processes and people. What did you learn there?
Yeah. I think actually what's interesting about Shopify for me was how many business models exist.
Yeah.
So I was very attuned to the different teams.
Right.
And I think actually seeing the different business models was helpful. Yeah. I saw like SaaS.
Right.
You see the app and partner platform, which is a totally different business model.
Right.
You see SFN, they're building it out with a very specific business model to that industry.
Right.
You see things like the retail team.
Right.
And it was funny in the early days of Shopify, they're a merchant as Shopify selling the retail hard readers. Right. And they were always sold out. Right. And I thought, that's the merchant business model. They're sold out.
Sure.
So to me, seeing the different business models, it was the first time I'd ever witnessed like what SaaS was.
Yeah.
And that helped me understand things that were out there.
Right.
And then the numbers of Shopify, it was fascinating to see just how big things are and how much you can scale and grow things. And that just being inside, seeing that was helpful.
I'm sure you learned like how important support was because you spent so much time there, realizing that can really mess things up or make things better.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got now, actually, I learned a lot about sales. Yeah. Even though we weren't really a sales team, but I was exposed to a lot of people who thought that way.
Yeah.
Now we're actually growing out a sales team. Right. So now I can apply some of the things I learned.
And SaaS, of course, software as a service, is a subscription model, right? And so that's probably prompted you to look at subscriptions in a similar way. And
think about it that way. And also someone said, subscription businesses get a higher valuation. So I thought, I wonder if that's a good idea for us.
Because the residual effect of you buy a customer once and they continue.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other side of it too, that I just think of now is Shopify exposed me to, you see many businesses off Shopify get these huge valuations. They grow, they go public. There's all these businesses that are Shopify merchants that have become wildly successful. Yeah. And as someone at Shopify, I would always see it and I'd understand that, I'd research and I'd read why they did that. And then Bushbalm, we're not in a place where we want to sell the business at all. Right. But now I understand what's important to make a business more valuable. Yeah. And a lot of it is just organization, obviously sales and profits and things like that.
But the Shopify ecosystem has spun off several publicly traded companies, for example. What's the long-term plan for Bushbalm? Do you think you guys have a interest in going public or?
Not going public. I've never thought that far ahead. Yeah. But the one thing that we're trying to figure out is, for the first time this year, we built our roadmap for 3 years. Because in skincare cosmetics, it takes 9 to 18 months to do a product. Okay. So it's a long time. So we're getting really ahead of our roadmap.
And that's 2 product iterations, basically, that you're thinking ahead for 3 years, right? 2 or 3?
Yeah. Oh, many more. So we're trying to launch a product every quarter, per se. Wow. Yeah. So you always have a cycle of products going on. Huh. Right now we're in a phase where I think we're just excited to grow and get to diversifying our channels a little more, because we're, I think, big enough now to start doing that. And then, as far as like selling the business, it's something we've talked about, but have no like intentions right now. Because in my mind, we are so early in our journey with like what we can be that, we just want to build out the right team and then go from there.
So on the journey from 0 revenue to 10 million, what was the biggest impediment that you hit and how did you get over it?
Yeah. Probably the hardest thing is finding your market fit. Okay. So for us, it's pretty clear in the sales if you go by actual years. So first year you go $2,500 in sales. Second year, 32,000. Yeah. Third year, 112,000. Okay. Fourth year, Fourth year, we found product market fit and we did 150,000, but we were sold out for 6 months.
Right.
So then the next year that was when we did 1.8 million. And that was because we knew what sells to people and what our product solves.
And you started solving like logistics, supply chain, inventory.
So as soon as you find out, okay, we know this is going to sell and we know like say CAC of this, that's when we could scale. Right. And then to me, that's the hardest challenge to overcome. Because once you do, all the other ones they're hard challenges. Like if you sell out, you need supply chain, whatever, but you might never sell out if you never find the product market fit.
And how did you find product market fit? Like talk a little bit about that.
So probably the best thing we ever did that almost anyone can do is we did a Etsy show. So, but it could be your local market or whatever it is. And the best thing ever at the time was we just talked to a bunch of people. And then you heard the words that sold and the words that didn't.
Really? So like a word cloud of talking to real people.
Yeah. So like the first people would come in and we'd say, oh, we're here, we're Bushbalm, we're pubic oil. Yeah. And people would go, I don't know, that's a pass, and they'd move on. And then over the weekend, we talked more and more and we came up with new words. And then by the end of the weekend, we said bikini line skincare. And people said, okay, I know exactly what that is. Yeah. And then we've iterated, but just talking that weekend, we realized if we did an ad that said pubic oil or pubic care, no one wanted it, but bikini line skincare is very positive.
Line skincare, yeah, it is very positive. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. And so you'd recommend going down, talking to real people, because I guess you get more real at bats because you see their face too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can send a survey to people for sure, but you're reading it. Yeah. As soon as you're in a moment with someone, you hear their honest take, and that changes things.
We don't need to. It's a little bit the same as merchant in residence, right? Like you're sitting in the chair telling people the truth. It's harder to ignore. You can ignore a survey where 10,000 people tell you something, but one person turning up their nose at what you're building can make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too is a survey might tell you a story that you make up in your head at Shopify, and I can quickly say, oh, they probably read it this way. And then they go, oh, maybe that's something different. Yeah. That's for sure.
Do you have any projections of revenue for the next 3 years that you're interested in sharing, or is it?
Not really. I say if you were to say revenue of Bushbalm, just assume every year will double. Yeah. Okay. For the next 3-4 years is the plan.
You've worked with me long enough to know that every time a big number like revenue doubles, like everything breaks. Yeah. Right. So your people, your process, all your systems, your technology. How are you thinking about all those things breaking?
So right now, the thing that's breaking is there's people side on product development for sure, and growing that quicker because there's a lot of pressure from,
especially if you're trying to release once a quarter.
Yeah. So the people are breaking there. And then the thing that's also happening is technology is breaking. Yeah. And a lot of it's not Shopify in general. Right. We're running pretty smoothly. It's the data infrastructure around it. We have to get ERPs for kind of mass retail. Yeah. We have to now do more project management than ever. Yeah. There's actual projects we're doing that just don't live in someone's head. Yeah. So all of that technology is kind of breaking us. There's so many systems we've got to go into. And then, the part that's going to be a new, as we get to a new level, to like say 20 million in revenue, our team is going to be at least twice as big, I would say.
How big is it now?
Right now we're I believe 6 full-time employees and 5 or 6 consultants. Yep. But we're about to hire. Actually, we just hired another employee, but we're about to hire probably 2 more by the end of the year, and then if all goes well on the sales side of it, we will grow that as fast as we possibly can.
And what's the thing you think you're worse at? You're going to hire for?
I would say we have a hole on is. Cosmetics and skincare and industry. Right. So right now we brought on a lot of consultants to really help us understand the industry better and what conferences you go to and meeting and networking. Yeah. So that's one piece. And then also on the marketing side, at one point I might not be smart enough is maybe my fear. Yeah. And so far I've made it work and we've figured out and we've scaled.
Because that's the thing you're best at probably, you think?
Yeah. Like digital marketing, like say Facebook ads, email automation, Google ads, Snapchat ads, like that's my bread and butter. Yep. But at one point, maybe my level of knowledge isn't enough in that area.
Yeah. And are you the CEO?
Yeah, so I would be CEO and Tim would be CPO. So he's in charge of product.
Great.
And he's hired someone on to help him right now, and then he needs at least 1 or 2 more people.
So with 6 full-time employees, you just hire another one. You've got about 5 part-time employees. So you're right. You know me. I'm 10 humans make a team. So you've got the rough skeleton of a team here. What's the culture of the place and these 10 people?
Yeah. So in the early days, it was me, Tim, and Rachel.
Right.
We were the 3 that came in, and actually, so I worked full time at Shopify, and Rachel worked full time at Bushbalm.
Right.
So she worked in my apartment. She was in the living room, and I was in the den. So I was at Shopify doing my calls. I'd go for a coffee, and her and I would chat about business, Bushbalm. Then I'd go back to Shopify. Yeah. So that was probably a good 3 months we did that.
Right.
And then now we've got an office. So there's 5 of us usually in the office every day, kind of working together. And I'm very now I think more about culture, because before I didn't understand it as much, and because it's only 5 people in, and it's now it's really, really important for how we build it. And that's probably one of my weaknesses. But luckily, I think there's other people on the team who's their greatest strength.
Right.
So they pull up people, and I kind of follow their lead in that way.
Cool. So at Shopify, we like to think we are a culture of learning, of curiosity, and of risk taking. Are you guys embracing some of those characteristics? Or?
Yeah, especially on like the failures and people say vulnerability, but I just say being honest. What we screw up, and so we're really good. Like a good example of, say, operations and culture and feedback and learning is we have a Monday call that runs the business.
Right.
So every week we hop on this Monday call, and generally it's like what's coming up, but also a lot of it's learning what didn't work the week before, or people will ask like, hey, why do we do this? And then I'll have to say, oh, that was something I did 3 years ago that we should probably not do anymore because I made this mistake. So we often, especially on marketing, talk about like the things that failed, because if otherwise people will just keep repeating them. We're pretty good to be open like that. At Shopify there's a lot of openness about failure, which is good.
What's your biggest failure so far, would you say?
Bushbalm? Probably the biggest one ever was we bought product, and then we had 10,000 bottles, our biggest purchase order of all time at the time, and all of them leaked.
Right.
Yeah. So we had to figure out what to do, and it ended up being we had to get instead of a 1 millimeter insert, we had to get a 2 millimeter.
Right.
So that was all it was. We changed it, but that meant I had to take the insert out of every single 10,000 lid and put it in the new one.
How long did that take?
Luckily I did it over time, but to do that would take at least a week of doing it.
Yeah.
So, but I did it over a year probably to sell all of those. But yeah, that was an early learning. A good learning for scale, operations, and the environment was we bought boxes that were rigid.
Right.
And we started that early on. They were beautiful, like beautiful boxes. But what it meant was when they shipped to us from the factory, they took a full container because they were so full of air.
Right.
So that was something we learned, like let's make them smaller, they can fold, they can travel better. And also when you ship it to somewhere, the smaller they are, the cheaper the shipping.
Right. Yep.
Also like the less cardboard you use, less plastic you use, the better for the environment.
It's good all around.
Yeah. So that was a good learning. And the learning was when we shipped a product, our shipping supplier said, hey, like, do you realize when you 10X this, you're going to be full, it's going to be ships. It's not going to be a container, it's going to be ships. Yeah. So you probably should stop doing this.
Right.
And we thought, okay, we don't want to ship ships. We want smaller packages.
So what would you like to accomplish as Shopify's merchant in residence?
Yeah. So for the next kind of few years, I think one big piece would be education. And I think the team at Shopify does an excellent job with education for merchants. The only piece that I want to really help accelerate is very specific education and get more into the tactics. So you'll see a few more sessions on Facebook ads and kind of the structures and the learnings that we've had along the way. So I would like to share more of that with merchants in Shopify, kind of thinking about joining Shopify. And then the other piece too is I love talking to the product teams. And the product teams are, in my opinion, I think every merchant will say this, over the years, it ebbs and flows with how much you love Shopify and how much you're disappointed in Shopify, which I think is healthy. And right now I am like really excited by the roadmap. And I just want to be a part of it, nudging it in different ways or providing feedback to make it better. So that's the next plan. And on this podcast, you'll hear 3 or 4 different episodes on very tactical things, which I love to dive into. Cool. All right. Well, Toby, thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks for continuing to be our merchant in residence and telling us the hard truth.
All right.
Thanks for checking out the Bushbalm miniseries. With more episodes to come, please follow along and comment any suggestions you might have.
So we'll see you in the next episode where we'll be chatting about all things product development.